All right, there we go. Hey folks, anybody flying into Oshkosh this week or today or anything, if you want any ideas or strategies, things to prep and plan for, I'm going to make a quick 1 or 2 minute video, 3 parts about flying to Oshkosh, operating when you're there, or kind of how to prep your plane and things while you're there to keep it safe and secure, and then departures that I'll probably do towards the middle of the week and do a video for that as well. So I know a lot of people left last week, but I've flown many different types of airplanes into there, from a 1947 vintage aircraft that barely had a starter and just had one radio, no nav or anything, to my own airshow plane. So I've done it since 1985. I went in with my dad all the time, and then he would, slowly build me up when I started getting to where I was soloing airplanes and get my license, and I would fly our airplanes up. And then when I started doing my own, I would go up obviously by myself. But I've been going up there by myself since I was 17 years old. And I feel like times have definitely changed, somewhat for the better, but also for the worse. Get started, basically, the first thing you want to think about is obviously reading the NOTAM. Oshkosh puts out a NOTAM, and ironically, the NOTAM has not changed in 50 years. The biggest difference is that I've seen going in and out of there is they've turned a visual footprint of using landmarks, dead reckoning, and pilotage to digital, meaning GPS waypoints and things. You're creating a rival versus your GPS and things like that. However, that can actually be a problem also, because the technology can make us complacent. The last few times I've gone in there, I've noticed people cannot maintain airspeed very well. They cannot maintain altitude very well. And they didn't even know where airplanes were. You could kind of tell by just how they were flying. So I honestly today feel like people are getting fixated on instruments or ADS-B, watching where airplanes are on their iPad and not just looking out the window. And Oshkosh is not a place where you want to look down. You want to look out and all over the place. So the thing there is know the NOTAM. Write out note cards. I still do this to this day. Even in airports, I'm going to an air show. I do a lot of Air Force bases and things. I write down specific things about that base, security issues and things like that. And I make notes to myself, because you don't have time to pull out your phone, look through it, or where did I put that? Put a little suction cup thing up on your windshield with the note cards. The ATIS frequency, the tower frequency, ground frequency, Fisk approach frequency. Have that right there. Frequency, boom, 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 right in order. You got it. Also with the ATIS frequency, they put out the phone number too, for if you're on the ground, you can't get them on the radio or whatever, you divert, weather or something like that, you can at least put on the phone and kind of get an idea what's going on at Oshkosh Airport. But put those main frequencies down, your hard altitudes. There's fast movers altitudes and airspeed. There's slow movers altitudes and airspeeds. Make sure you get that. I'm not going to tell you what they are. I think I probably know them by now. I would still look at the NOTAM, but I'm not telling you any of this information because you should be looking at the NOTAM, and I want you to get the information, so I'm not going to tell it to you. There's 2 altitudes. There's a slow mover altitude with an airspeed. There's a fast mover altitude with an airspeed. Maintain that altitude. If you cannot maintain a consistent, precise altitude within 100 feet, and honestly, I think that's even a bit much, or airspeed within 5 miles an hour of your target airspeed, you shouldn't go to Oshkosh. Seriously, if you can't maintain altitude plus or minus, you're flying darn near in formation with a stranger. So, be able to maintain airspeed, have master control of your aircraft. It's not something where I just got my private pilot's license, I'm going to go up there. I did, but I also went up there for 15 years with my father before that, and I had about 300 hours when I got my pilot's license, because I started logging it and doing lessons when I was 12. So it's a lot different. If you have 40 hours, 50 hours, you probably shouldn't go to Oshkosh. Even though it sounds cool and it's enticing, you might want to. It's also an interest of safety. The other thing that Oshkosh people don't take in consideration is the experience levels. You've got old people that may have not flown a whole lot, and they just go to Oshkosh every year, or maybe a few fly-ins. You got people that go every single year and fly air shows regularly, like even the air show performers do the same thing. They'll be in there in the same bucket with you sometimes. You have people that flew back in the warbird days. You might have people that are flying warbirds that are young cats. You might have people that just got their private pilot's license, and then you got experienced airline pilots. You have all these people. It's a melting pot of pilot experience. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a 100% good thing either, because that's normally where issues start arising, because it's a huge diversity of experience levels, and there's a ton of challenges there. So you want to keep it simple, and you don't want to overcomplicate things. So we don't want to overcomplicate things, so what do? We fly all this digital stuff in airplanes. We have phones, we have iPads, we have Garmin 1000s, we have all this crazy stuff. No. The coolest thing, even if you fall out your waypoints, I think now it goes out to Portage, and you follow the lakes up, and you go to Ripon. Sorry, I won't say Ripon, and then over to Fisk, and you're doing your approach thing, your wing. when you do that, they have now like waypoints, so you can plug in your GPS and fly it. Okay, cool. Google Earth that shit and look up where it's at and look at your ground references. The more you're familiar with the ground and what's outside the window, the safer you're going to be. And the easier it is. I find that, I fly at pits, right? I can't see anything at all, period. I have no room to move anything. Everything's written down and I look out the window. I've had no issues. So we tend to overcomplicate things with technology and innovation of going into there. And that's where I think that's where issues are. The other thing, so there we go. Let's review just up to this point. Check your NOTAM, make your notes, write down your note cards, your frequencies, your hard altitudes, your airspeeds. Google Earth, Flight Simulator X, anything like that. Make yourself a little simulation route of what you plan on doing, your plan of going from Portage, which is normally the start point, up to Fisk and then into Oshkosh. There's a lot of different ways they get you going. They'll either put you basically on entering a base to land to the north, or you'll fly over kind of up due north off of Fisk, and then you'll enter a right downwind for the west runway. And then every once in a while, which I haven't seen it as much, but they do it quite. It's been often, but it seems to always be the north or the west landings. But you can get the straight into, or basically north to intercept and land on a right base to runway 9, or come around the south, enter a left downwind for, left downwind for the 1-8 runways, which isn't as common, but they still do it. So at any rate, look at all those possibilities. And the other thing, so we got up to that point. Now, the other thing to kind of think about going into Oshkosh, it's midsummer, right? Midwest, upper Midwest, hot days, cold nights. You're going to have weather. It's a week-long event. There's going to be thunderstorms. There's going to be weather. It doesn't matter. So how do we get around that? Well, thunderstorms start in the afternoon. Okay, and that's normally when the air show is. They've got boxes, the airport's closed anyways, can't go there. So we're going to go early in the morning. Okay, what's the problem with that? Fog. So now you got possible reduced visibilities in the morning. You got thunderstorms in the afternoon. You got a box that's going to open up. The airport's going to close. And you got all these factors. So really watch your trends of the weather days before you even plan on departing. Because if you kind of get an idea what the weather's doing in the forecast, okay, there's not going to be any fog. It's a low dew point or whatnot, or, not a forecast thunderstorms till after 1. I'm going to be there by 9 or whatever. So you kind of get that idea, because the biggest problem you get up there is you might be tight on gas. They're doing extra holds. They got an influx of airplanes. Somebody screws up on the runway and closes the runway for an hour, whatever. You're now out of gas and there's weather restrictions, and maybe your alternate's covered by weather, so you might not be able to get to it. So, always have an out, have a plan, watch the weather. Also check your notice for your fuel stops. One thing I've noticed, there's a lot of times that the airports are doing mass construction progresses now. It's either ramp, taxiways, runways, or terminal stuff. So they have huge NOTAMs there, and some stuff might be closed. So you want to make sure that, and even the airport at times might be closed at certain times for striping runways and stuff like that. So always check your NOTAMs for your airports too, up to literally a few hours before you go, because things change all the time. I actually had one where obviously my airplane, I don't get Wi-Fi or anything like that. So I'll check before I go, and mid-flight, like hour and a half, the fuel pump quit at the airport, and they put out a NOTAM like literally 5 minutes before I landed and didn't have gas. It wasn't a big deal because I had it fixed in an hour, but that's how fast that stuff can change. So always check all your NOTAMs, make sure you have an out, plan yourself a couple extra stops within about a half hour of your window. Don't just run up to your fuel and be like, I got to get fuel at this fuel stop. Give yourself that 30 minutes. Give yourself maybe even 45 minutes to get to another airport, because I think that will save your butt. And the other thing is there's plenty of airports around Oshkosh. I always went to Juneau, which is Juneau, Wisconsin, from my direction up to Chicago. That was more when they were using always Ripon as the arrival transition, but now they go almost default out to Portage, so I would change that. But last time I did, it still worked out pretty well. It's only like a 15-minute flight for me anyways, from Juneau over to Portage onto the arrival, and I can kind of listen and figure out what's going on at that point. But Juneau is great because it's only, like I said, it's 20 minutes, and about 20 minutes down the arrival puts me into Oshkosh at a huge fuel window. I've got a ton of fuel then. I could do about 2 to 3 circuits in a hold before I'd have to divert, and that's my diversion airport. Boom, I will get out of Dodge and go right to the airport. Always have an out and plan to go into Oshkosh. I think you should go into Oshkosh very fat. I think Portage even has an airport. Now that could get just as busy as anything else because everybody's circling around there anyways. It's probably a busy, non-towered, non-controlled airport. So be really, really careful, stretch it too thin, and make sure you have a diversion airport, but really watch where airports are, because you could very well be going into something that's almost like a mini Oshkosh. The other ones are obviously a big one, and it's even in the NOTAM, is Fond du Lac, Appleton, Green Bay. Well, Fond du Lac puts in a tower during Oshkosh. It can get just as busy. Everybody's going there. It's a funnel point. Same thing with Appleton and Green Bay. So kind of be careful, because you may not be able to get right in right away if everybody's diverting from Oshkosh for whatever reason to go into those. So I like to use an airport that's kind of just out of the way, away from the weather. Traditionally goes west to east, or, from the north to the south or whatever. Juneau's kind of due south, maybe a little bit east of Oshkosh. So even if there's weather building up and I see it's going to hit and everything's going to hurt, boom, I can 180 out of there, open air, and I'll land before the weather even hits, and we're safe. But also plan on these airports within 15 to 20 minutes of flight time of Oshkosh, because that way you can go in fat. Worst thing you can do is when you get to Oshkosh, you have to wait 2 days for the fuel to show up, and fuel is about $9 a gallon. I haven't even looked this year. That was like last year. So, why do that to yourself? Just stop at these airports. A lot of these airports, these little GA airports around there, are gracious too, because they know Oshkosh is a big time for aviation. A lot of the time, some of them, actually Juneau for a while, they haven't in recent years, but for a while back in the late 80s, mid-90s, up to mid-90s, they would have hot dogs and burgers and cheap gas and all sorts of different amenities, because EAA are stopped into there, and they really enjoyed that. So that airport's grown a lot since then. So they're very gracious of your stuff. So we've got up to weather now, getting your NOTAMs and things at Oshkosh. So the other big thing, make sure you write down your frequencies, have your altitudes and your airspeeds of what you want to maintain, and you should be able to maintain that altitude within 100 feet and your airspeed within 5 knots. If you can't do that, don't go to Oshkosh. Seriously, don't go. Not ready yet. Because the other thing, now that you got that done, you also have darn near do spot landing contests. Doesn't mean you're going to go out there, land it on the spot, and take home a big trophy. But you are probably not going to have a warbird propeller up your butt if you fly it right, because they do kind of conveyor belt the airplane. So they basically have 3 or 4 spots down the runway. I don't know what the colors are anymore. And actually, they used to not have that. I've watched even that develop. Basically land on the spot, and then you'll keep the aircraft rolling. And a lot of these things can really create issues. Whatever you do, last thing anybody wants is an accident or an incident. So don't get in a rush. Tower's going to yell at you. Everybody's going to get in the intensities of the moment, things like that. Somebody's got to go around, they go around. Going around is better than hitting somebody. Remember the Warbird and the RV, the classic picture a few years ago? So we don't want any of that. So the biggest thing is you maintaining control of your aircraft and being safe. That's it. Do not maintain control of your aircraft is being safe. So safety is the key. Nobody wants an accident. Nobody wants to deal. No matter how mad anybody gets at anybody, nobody wants to deal with an accident. So, but you can practice these things. You got a touchdown zone on every runway, right? Markers and things like that. If you don't have markers, you got center lines, drive. Go out and make a chalk line, whatever you want. Go out and practice yourself landing safely on a spot without slamming it in, without floating forever and things like that. And see how fast you can safely control the aircraft, whether it be coasting at a fast airspeed and, especially with tricycle landing gears, things like that, or if you have a conventional landing gear, tail wheel, might get a little wonky. I think a couple years ago I was following a Varieze, a very, very weird aircraft to see, right, visually, because they're very flat, narrow. When you're behind them, it's even worse. If you're out this way, you see the winglets, things like that. But when you're behind it, those things are so flat. And so he lands and goes straight, and this guy cannot maintain altitude airspeed to save his life. So he gets up there, and then I land, and tower's yelling me, keep your speed up, keep your speed up. And I'm like, man, I'm doing 95, 100 knots anymore. I'm going to fly again. So I'm slowly decelerating, but I just it's a wide runway, so I go to the right of the center line so I can see him because he's slightly to the left, and then I just kind of coast there and almost do like a formation landing. But do not lose sight of who you're following. If you do, slow it down to a safe airspeed and go where you need to, and they'll even motion you in the grass if you need to go there. But worst thing you can do is somebody up ahead of you. Again, everybody's a complete stranger. Yeah, we're a big family, big airshow family, flying family, EAA family, whatever. But you're still landing with somebody on runway you don't know, most likely, unless you're in one of the mass arrivals or formation, whatever. But for the most part, you don't know that guy, he don't know you, or girl, whatever. So if you lose sight of them and all of a sudden they blow a tire, slam on the brake, or do something, you're going to go right into them, and nobody wants that. So the other things It's more prominent, I think, on 2, 7, and 9 than it is on the north runways. North runways, they normally take you to the end. You get off the taxiway, you circle back around, you come up taxiway, and then go to parking. But on the other runway, it's very likely they actually take you off the grass, and then you go back on the taxiway. So when you do that, for God's sakes, make sure you count which taxiway light goes by. Like, make sure one goes by before you get off. Never get off thinking that, oh, there's a gap, I'm going to get off. There might be a light right in front of you in your blind spot, you can't see it. So what I always do is, once I know, hey, they want me off, the light goes by, I get off the runway. Do not guess, because if you guess, you're going to have that puppy go right through the thing, and having a taxiway light up your crotch probably don't feel good. So remember that. Kind of jumping ahead, so we'll go back a minute. But while we're on that subject, the other things you want to have, they don't like using iPads and things because it puts up a glare, the screen, and the directors, the ground people can't see it. So have a little note card, IAC, vintage, camping, whatever, and show them where you want to go, and they send you, and they do a great job. They do a great job at getting you to the next person, and I mean, it's freaking chaos. So it's great how they run, especially their ground operations. These people are volunteers, so it's a really well run thing. Let's back up a little bit. So we kind of jumped ahead. So you get up there, you're flying landing. But before all that, I kind of jumped. So we're on the arrival. You get up to Fisk. You have your Fisk approach in because you had it written up on your note card. We dial that in. And don't talk. For God's sakes, don't talk. I hear people talk on the radio all the time. Don't do it. In fact, a few years ago when I went in there, we're all circling around. They were nuts. Like, people were going left and right and crazy. And this guy in Bonanza's down just south of the arrival. And I'm actually watching one even on ADSB. We're all just circling over Portage area, getting ready to come up. I think it's not Green Lake, not Rush Lake, the one before that. But anyways, we're down south that lake, and we're all getting ready to come up there. This guy calls Fisk approach. He's in a Bonanza so-and-so, light clearance to land at Osh. And I'm like, dude, it is not that kind of day, you know. So, but you'll have that, and they're just flying right along to cross the final and button line and land, and you're going to get that. So, at any rate, have your frequency up there. You're going to get to your altitude. You're going to come over Fisk. Now, the way it was back in the 90s, this was funny, is it was basically a big old orange X with a tent out and a guy on a radio, and he called you out and said, so-and-so, you know, from my case, blue biplane, rock your wings, and away you go. Now they have all sorts of things. I think even the ground controller has the iPad, and he can actually call you by N number, which is really weird because they're using ADSB info. So it's kind of cool, actually. That's one thing with ADSB. I think from their stance is a lot safer, a lot better. From us, I think we should just look out the window and fly and do stuff what we need by ground references. But when they call me out, hey, 5 Tango Sierra, rock your wings, enter right base 436 left, you know, or whatever. I'm like, sweet. Make it a lot easier because you might be in line with 4 other blue biplanes. Of course, I love it and do a good rock, man. This is your time. You ain't no airshow. Don't lose control of your airplane. Be safe. But they do like seeing, you know, nice, good rock. Don't just do a little winky-dink one and stuff. And I did a nice competition once, and the guy's like, oh, that was the best one of the day, you know. They like that. They're bored. They're sunburned out in the field, and you'd be surprised their perspective. To us, it kind of looks a little bit higher because it's really flat out there and stuff, but to them, their planes are right there, so it looks pretty cool. It's a really neat thing for the controller as well, so give them something. They're busting their butts for you. Some of the other things on the NOTAM actually does have specific obstacles. So if you're in a right base to the 3-6 runways, the north runways, there is a microwave antenna. You basically fly up from Fisk, you'll intercept a road. I forgot what highway it is. Again, read the NOTAM. But there is a microwave antenna out there, and they tell you to stay outside that, and then, you know, enter your base and land. I think I've only seen the antenna a few times. That's one thing I will glance now at the GPS because it has obstacle clearance. So it'll pop up, and I'll be like, oh, there it is, and I got kind of an idea where it is. But I think if you fly it correctly and you actually fly the NOTAM, it's not really an issue. They're just telling you it's there and to use as a reference. But it's Wisconsin. There's microwave antennas all over the freaking place. And then, so then we just thought about landing and all that kind of stuff and ground operations to take you to parking. Boom, you go. Get your tie downs out. Tie down your freaking airplane. That's where I'm going to leave this at is... there's a lot of different tie downs. I use heavy dog tie downs. It's a Pitts, so it's not a big deal. But some of the bigger airplanes, the best one, and I have used those. They weren't mine. I borrowed them, but are the Claw. You know, they're those things that they have arms that come out, stick into the ground deep, and they're really good tie downs. However, they're a bit bulky and they're a bit big. So if you're in a baggage restricted airplane like I am, or anything, you know, antique that might weight and balance might be an issue, that might not be a good thing. So, they work great, but they are a bit space compromised, if you will. So, but the biggest thing is make sure you have something to tie down your aircraft. And like I said, you will have a storm that week somewhere. So know how to tie down your aircraft properly. Make sure you don't forget about the rudder if you don't have a gust lock. Normally what I'll do is bungee my rudder all the way to the stop so it's not moving, but it's all the way to the stop. And then I put stuff in the airplane to secure the stick, and then I also tie it down, and I also put the stick in with my seat belts. That's a really good one if you're in an experimental, especially biplanes, and don't have a gust lock or anything. You pull the stick all the way back, so the elevator's all the way back, and then hook your seat belts to it. You loosen them up all the way, hook your seat belts to it, and then tie it down. That the controls are not moving at that point. And also by moving the controls like that, it makes the water drip off easier too if it does rain. But don't forget about the rudder. A lot of people secure everything great, and the rudder's bam, 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 bam. Not good for it. And then the other thing that I will definitely, lastly, because I want to do one about things of security this week. Also know that we're in a different generation, and how many does anybody on here know a person building an airplane in their garage? How many kit planes can you name out there that's not RV or Kit Fox? And we're just in a different generation. Unfortunately, I've seen that in the evolution of these big flying convention air shows. It has become more of a traditional air show. Back when I started going, my dad was building 2 airplanes. I was helping him. His friends were building airplanes. It was all about going up there and learning from each other. And we still do that to a certain extent, but you didn't see the jets and the Pilatuses and the Cirruses and all that kind of stuff sitting on the ramp. It was the next biggest thing. It was the Cessnas and the home building associations and vintage, and they're all still there, but now it's gotten so big that people really just can't afford that stuff anymore. And we, as our own community, go up there to learn from each other, and that's why I still continue to go. And I love doing that, but to just the regular person out there, it's our job to inspire them to do this, and we want to do that. But unfortunately, it's falling faster than we can bring people into it. And so that being said, a lot more people are going now to these things as more of the air show than the convention. It used to be more people went for the convention. It was the air show, or the air show was put on to exhibit and showcase the next best thing, right? Like back in the day when I was watching Patty Wagstaff flying the Extra 300S, that was the supreme aircraft of the time. And then you could go out and see the extras sitting right there, or big things, the Rutan airplanes, or the RVs. And they would do a thing, I think they called it the showcase, where about an hour before the show, they fly the airplanes around, and you got to see the next best stuff. And then you could go out and look at it. And now it's more just, here's the convention, there's the air show. And most of the air show folks I've worked at other air shows with, and they're great pilots and great performers and everything, but I feel like it's not the old EA where we're promoting the experimental aviation, the amateur built, the building these airplanes in our garages. I slept with airplane fabric as a blanket. How many people do that anymore? So that being said, that's the kind of the demographic bringing in, and these folks don't understand airplanes because people just don't understand. And they'll sit on your wheel pants, they'll have babies that they're changing on your tail, they'll smoke nearby, they'll lean up or push against your propeller, they'll have kids running flat out to the airplane. I even watched or heard a story of one guy who's actually a performer, a good buddy of mine, that literally witnessed a mom putting her kid in the airplane in the front seat, and he turned the master on. Can't do that stuff. So biggest things, rope your aircraft off, and it's pretty awesome to experience and do up there, but you really do need to separate now the general public from the airplanes. Doesn't mean you can't bring people to the airplane, but what's going on while you leave? So I always roped my airplane off, and I just leave a little loop and unrope it when I'm there. I think all the airplanes anymore need to be roped off because people really just don't understand it. In fact, another story here, a few years ago, actually, I always, when I'm up there, I'm right by the IEC buildings where I display the airplane, and of course, I always rope it off, little Pets S1 or whatever, and I'm there with all the Extra 300s and the MXs and this and that, and they're kind of giving me weird looks when I rope my plane off, literally all the way around it. It's like, trust me, experience, right? And then these guys looked at me, brand new extras too. I mean, these probably were $600,000-$700,000 airplanes, beautiful airplanes. And that was the night of the night show, one of them. Night show, don't get me wrong, it's really cool. Matt Youngkin, love you, always be my favorite. But when it comes to crowd control at a night show. They let everybody kind of go sits where they want. EAA's defense, they put out floodlights to help people see. Unfortunately, they got all these obstacles around. What does bright lights do? Create more shadows. So now you got people impaling themselves with pitot tubes, propellers, spinners, anything else coming out, tripping over tie downs because airplanes aren't roped off, banging their luggage or whatever they have slung over themselves into airplanes, dealing with their kids that were in the heat all day, and all this stuff, trying to get a mad dash out so they can beat traffic. They don't give one damn about your $500,000 airplane. So at any rate, when this happened, I had my thing, like I said, rope off, and finally these two guys with these extras, they had one lady was sitting on his wheel pant watching the air show. Another one was smoking right next to him, sitting in the grass, like letting his cigarette butts go out in the nice dry Oshkosh grass. And we were literally the last people off the airport. In fact, I even had it out with security because they were making us leave while people were still going out. I said, no, these are our aircraft. We're going to stay here until people leave because I'm sorry, we just don't trust it right now. So the next day I come back, the rope went all the way around that whole area, because that's the way it is. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens now when people go to these things. They're not thinking airplanes, they're thinking show. They want to see a show. They want to see all these things. If you go to a rock concert, you don't have a bunch of guitars and band equipment sitting in the crowd, right? And if you did, what would happen to that at the end of the show? It wouldn't be taken care of. It would be rummaged and ran over. Well, why does that need to happen to the airplanes? And we work really hard for these things. So, yeah, don't take that for granted. Rope your aircraft off. And then I'll leave it at that for now. I actually went kind of off because I'm going to do it. I had more questions and stuff. So, at any rate, let me see here. I got a couple. It's cost prohibitive to get into aviation, much less to build your own airplane. It is and it isn't. There's actually, right now, aviation's not too bad because they have so many grant programs and certain things you can do and apply for depending on your heritage, depending on what you want to do in aviation, whether it be commercial, airline, general. There's actually a lot of money out there to be had. You just got to go find it. And look, I came from a poor family, and yes, my dad helped me learn to fly and things like that, but I never went to a flight school. Everything I did was one-on-one, 61, and we did it. I literally read a book, and when he thought I was good enough through his quizzing, he would sign me off to take the test. Like, we didn't have the money, even though, I had a decent life in that sense. I mean, he lost his job 3 times. My mom made barely $17,000 a year. They were divorced. I was going back and forth between families and all that, and look what I have now, 2 airplanes. So yes and no, and actually building your own airplane is more cost efficient than prohibitive, and that's actually why I learned to fly in the airplanes that we have, was because my dad started building the Skybolt, which is the one in my Facebook reel. It says aggravation on the tail. It's the biplane, the white with the red, orange, and yellow stripes. He actually started building that airplane 10 years before I was even born, and then I soloed it at 17. And then the Ultimate he started when I was about 7, and then I sold it down when I was 18. So that was the purpose, was they were investments. He didn't know how to even build airplanes. He would learn how to weld. I mean, he had a maintenance, he has an A&P and license like that, and he went up through the ranks back in the days of Gemini and stuff like that, but it wasn't like he was out there welding in a manufacturing plant. So where did he learn a lot of his stuff? At EAA. He'd go up there and do little forms, of whether it be welding, sheet metal, riveting, building wings, dope and fabric, things like that. Learn how to do it and then take that technique and transition it to his house. And he did everything as an investment. Oh, I can afford fabric this month. Oh, I can afford this month. And put it all together and you build it. And almost building these things is like building a full-scale RC. It's really not bad. Now, when you get down to engines and propellers and things like that, it gets tough. But, it is, and you're right, and the mechanical aptitudes declined. You're correct. But that's where we come in, I feel, as a air show performer and things like that. That's why the community engagement is so important to me. Is because I'm trying to change that one by one. It's a big group to change, but to get people to take pride in what they do, again, that's another reason why I bought the Luscombe, is I wanted to get everybody made fun of me, like, it's a polished airplane, you're going to drive yourself crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I can take pride in it because that work is what we're doing. The original owner did the current polish job. I will do the next one. but that shows the result of hard work. And it's a complete representation of hard work. You know, the pits is a representation of me as a child attending EA, going to Oshkosh, doing all this with my dad, and this is the complete sum of where that's become. And I set all on this on my own. I've been divorced, I've been homeless, I've been, poor, I've had all these kinds of things happen to me. I mean, the whole purpose that I'm flying the jet that I fly today from the Embraer 145, I transitioned airplanes because that's when I was going through my divorce and I needed a place to stay. So he's like, well, if I go to training, I'll have a hotel room for a few months. So I did that. So I was going to training and going to court dates back and forth on the weekend. So it can be tough in life, but it can be done if you want it, and if you want it bad enough. But that all starts with you got to save your money. That's the whole idea of what aviation is that you got to start as a good investment, but you have to start. That's the thing. You got to try and you got to start. You can't sit there and think like, oh, I can't do it. It's too expensive. It's too hard. I didn't make my bed today. I didn't do this. We can always tell us a million reasons not to do something, but it's so hard to get that one reason to do it. So go do it. I don't want to hear anything else. If anybody wants to go out and do this stuff, go do it. You want to know why? Because you can go out to your local airport, do a discovery flight for $100. $100 right now, and I know that because I've asked 3 cent flight schools. $100. Go out and do it. And then start from there. Oh, I've got $150 today. Extra I set aside. Boom, flight lesson. Another $150. Up, flight lesson. How much do people spend on sporting tickets? Think about all the money that we spend on things that aren't necessarily necessary, and you put that into the bank that makes it necessary. Do it. It's simple. You just got to sacrifice and push it. Okay, I got to scroll here. Do I get paid for air shows? Yes, I do. Awesome, Owen. Yeah, I'll be at Oshkosh then, Owen. So I'll be at KidVenture in the mornings, probably from like 9 to 11ish. Depends when we get things set up and started. So feel free to come out there. It's up at Pioneer Airport. If it's in the same area it was last year, I'm trying to think west. So it would be basically on the east side of the ramp, on the north side of the runway. So you got Pioneer, the grass strip, the grass runway. We're on the north side, on the east end of the ramp there. So there's a big tent and everything, and I'll probably have my banner up or whatever. So come out and say hi, absolutely. So let's recap. You're going to Oshkosh. You wake up in the morning. You just had a good rest. You probably won't because your mind's going to start racing. Eat something. Drink a lot of fluids right away so you can piss it all out before your flight, and then go because you're going to be busy. But you want to be well hydrated, nutrition, all that kind of thing. I normally resort to like yogurt in the morning. I'll eat yogurt and then drink some water, and it keeps me going for a good bit when I'm on a long day, especially flying across country. Write down your frequencies. Write down your hard altitudes. So frequencies, what's important? ATIS, tower, ground, FISC approach. That's all you need. Write them down on a note card. Put it right there on your instrument panel. Boom. Hard altitudes, airspeeds. Boom. Hard altitudes, airspeeds. Well, what do you got? Airspeed altimeter. Put them right there. Don't block the instrument, but put them right there. And then you know that, oh, shit, I'm getting off. You can fly it, okay? Know the NOTAM, right? Know the NOTAM. Highlight anything. Anything you highlighted, put on a note card. Because you're not going to have time to go out over the NOTAM, whether you get it in paper, whether you get it digital, whatever. You're not going to have time. So know the NOTAM. Anything you highlighted, make notes for. Put your note cards up in the cockpit so you have them in easy access, and away you go. When you get to the Oshkosh transition point, start looking for aircraft out the window. It's good to use ADS-B as a reference. Don't get fixated on it. People get fixated on it just like an instrument. Oh, there's airplanes. Look outside because those are the ones going to hit you. Watch the airplanes. Know your ground references. Google Earth that shit. Do anything. Look at everything around you. It's really simple if you just do the homework. It's real simple. Get in line with the aircraft. A lot of times people go to portage, you'll normally do like one circuit and a hold, and then everybody just starts going in line, and you'll hear FISC approach starting to call people, flying in. Follow the route. FISC approach. When you get up to FISC, so-and-so aircraft, rock your wings, boom, boom. Enter your right base to the north runways, your right base to the east runway, right downwind to the west runway, or left downwind to the south runway. Then know your note card where you're parking. So when you land, spot landing contest. So land on your spot. Don't be unsafe with your speed once you land. Note the aircraft in front of you where he's at before you land when you see him. Keep an eye on him. Listen to where they're sending him because that's probably a good chance where you're going. get in line and follow. Then get out your note card for where you're parking. Hold it up to the guy on the ground. They'll direct you to the next guy. They'll direct you to the next guy. If you're parking out in like 140, I really, really, really feel for you because it's like 5 miles opposite to where you landed. Tie down aircraft. Done. That's it. That's Oshkosh. So stop going through presidential TFRs and shit. It's real simple. Okay? Now, that's another thing, too. Anybody that's going up to Oshkosh again, this cracked me up last week, right? The presidential TFR is over Milwaukee, okay? And they go out about 30 miles. They're all over the place. They've always been around since 9/11, right? Anybody that checks their weather, I use iFly GPS, we use iFly GPS, 4Fly, or even most weather apps have an aviation layers filter, so it tells you TFRs, weather things, phenomena, stuff like that. They put them up there, so look at it before you fly. I crack up. I'm like, how do people not know, one, where the hell the convention was, two, that there'd be a presidential TFR, and the reason there was a presidential TFR is because of the way that they do the nominating process. They consider it like another presidential event, so that's why during that time, even though Biden wasn't necessarily there, it's considered the same type of airspace for security reasons. So, but I'll tell you, there's so many assets now that you can look at this the night before, but always look even the morning before. And I'll tell you a story. So I was doing the Dover Air Force Base air show. Biden put up literally Friday night, man. We're flying the show from Thursday to Sunday. Friday night, going to be down at Rehoboth Beach. Well, guess what? That shuts down the entire state of Delaware when that guy's at the beach. So I'm literally that night doing, because I never did it before, I do stuff for the airlines. I never needed to do the GA thing. So I'm doing the CIFRA and freeze training on the FAA website and all that, get my little certificate to put on the fridge. I've got my alternate route ready to go out in case this changes. And the crazy thing, it showed the airspace was going to be hot on the TFR until Tuesday at like 3 p.m. So I was going to get stuck at this air show till like Wednesday morning if nothing else changed. Then it said it was going to go hot at 9, then it went to midnight, and then it was going to go hot till 3 on Tuesday, and then they changed it to 1 on Monday. So I'm like, man, they're changing this like crazy. So I flew. So since it was not going hot until Sunday night, I immediately flew, and it's something I hate doing, but I had to do it in this instance, is I basically flew, fueled up, and left and got the hell out of Dodge. And I had to overnight because I was going to run out of daylight getting back to Chicago, but I ended up overnighting just to get out of the airspace. But know those times that they go hot too. Not the fact that they're just there, because they might put them up days or weeks in advance. A lot of the like rocket ones, the SpaceX and things like that, they'll do like a week or two in advance because they got those launches scheduled. But things change, weather changes, maintenance and things like that. But with the president, he can just decide, tomorrow I'm going to the beach, TFR. So, and then now with the campaigning things, and then the recent events last week with the assassination, things like that, security's going to get nuts. So, all you got to do is TFR.gov or TFR or whatever. Just Google TFR. I'll look at my weather apps and all that kind of stuff, but because they're third party, I trust it to an extent, but I still want to look at it the day of. I just go to the TFR website. That's the FAA website, so nothing's arguable then. And I can pull it up in my history. If anything ever got questions, say, look, I looked, I checked, it wasn't there. So let me go back to some questions. Any shows in Ontario? No. I've been asked, but I haven't actually done an international show yet. Maybe down the road. I haven't really necessarily need to. It might be one of those bucket list items. I'd like to do it, but a lot of times I've just been keeping pretty busy here. But that's something I would look at if that question came down the road to do it and go through the paperwork and stuff. I got asked to do somewhere, was it El Salvador or something last year or the year before, and it just, wasn't economical, wasn't feasible for me. Ontario wouldn't be too bad because I do some kind of close anyways up that way, but that would be fun. Cool. All right, so we're getting close to all these questions. I think anything else? This was fun. I appreciate everybody joining me. That was pretty cool. Cool. All right. Nat's texting me, so I better go see what she wants. And then I'm going to do the official recording of this, put out a video, and see everybody up in Oshkosh. I'll be rolling in Wednesday night. So, like I said, Kid Venture in the mornings. We come in Wednesday night, come out and get a picture, and talk airplanes and cool shit.